Good afternoon. My name is Matt Point, and I'm a projects officer with Union Learn from the TUC, and I'm here today with my colleague.
Hello, I'm Adrian Ryan, a project support officer from Union Learn.
And today we're going to be looking at sites that are there to improve your digital skills. Now, a lot of the sites that we've looked at already, such as FutureLearn, Coursera, OpenLearn, have loads of digital skills options. But some people want to go further. They want to go deeper. They want to explore things like coding, which are not available on the generic sites. So where do you go? What's out there on the internet? And is it any good? Now, the fact is, usually Adrian and I try these things out and talk about what we know. But this is our whole subject where, if we're honest, we don't really know anything. So what we've done today is we've brought an expert along, and we'd love him to introduce himself.
Hi there, yeah, I'm Neil. I am from PCS Union, and I'm an organising officer there. But today I'm doing this in a personal capacity. I do have I've got an IT background, and I've worked in database development and MI management information, that sort of thing. So what I'm drawing on is my limited, should we say, experience in that. But you know, perhaps it's broad enough for what we want to sort of do and how we want to sort of start off with me showing you some of the sites that I like, basically.
Okay, well, I'm sure you know more than Adrian and I do anyway. So, okay, what's first?
Right, okay, so the first one I'd like to show you here is Udemy, which is a collection of training, predominantly videos from various different providers. So what I'll do is I'll just show you through a few of these now. Okay, so digital marketing, Excel, iOS, which is the programming language for Apple, Java, which is something you can do to you can sort of program apps using that on various different systems like Android, that sort of thing. Right, and so you see, it's actually very, very varied. What you'll also notice, however, is that there are prices on each of these. And those are also quite variable. So you've got one that's free here, C++, which is a programming language. Then you've got something about malware, which is quite advanced. I think the key thing with Udemy, really for me, is that the quality can be variable, because as you'll see here, there are different providers for each one. And users review them. So obviously, if you see something with 3 stars and below, you might want to have a think about whether or not you think that's particularly, going to be something that you want to do. The key thing with Udemy is, because you're going to be parting with your money, is to make sure you know what you want to learn. Really, I think.
Have you ever done any of the free courses on there?
I have done one in search engine optimization, which is how, basically broadly, how you get your search results to the top of a search on Google, that sort of thing. So that's kind of a useful skill for a lot of kind of different things. I mean, what it's useful for sometimes can be small businesses, that sort of thing. So I have done one of those. I mean, I will be honest. What I like about Udemy is the broad variety of stuff on here. What I'm not so fond of is that the quality can be variable. So I think really it can be a good starting point to find things that you're interested in, but really you have to make sure that you're looking for the free content, really. So I've kind of started off probably with what I think is my least favorite one of the lot. So I think, unless you've got any more questions, I think I'll move on to one that I like a bit more. How's that?
That's fine, Neil. Yeah.
Good. Okay. So, righto. So the next one that I'll show you is Codecademy. Again, so what I'll do is you'll see here I'm already signed into it. A lot of these sites will be predominantly subscription based. So what you have to be really careful of with this one and others is that you will get free trial periods, as you'll see here, you get a free trial period of a certain amount of days, in this case 7. Thereafter, you're going to be charged either a monthly fee, which is quite high, or annual fee, which you pay in one go. So 192 quid, pretty much that you're going to pay if you do it annually. So they are expensive if you want to go for the pro, and you're going to make sure that you cancel your subscription if you can have a look at the free plan. What I do like about this, though, is that it is really hands-on. So if I go back here to where I was before, obviously, so coding, very marketable generally. SQL, which is my background in IT, my sort of the area I probably know the most about, is you get to actually dip your toes into actual coding. So you get to have a go at stuff. So let me see here. So just for example, you look in the middle here. For those not familiar with SQL, what it does is it queries databases. So rather than you clicking into a database and you're clicking buttons to find what you want, SQL is a skill where you query the database and find anything you like from it. So I'll just do a bit of code here. Oops, type it correctly. Select start from celebs. So what this is doing is it's querying a database. Hit run, and if you look on the box on the right, there we go. We've got all these celebs here that have come up. So in a professional environment, you would see something a little bit similar to this if you were using SQL. So this is a pretty good example of something that's quite hands-on. Another thing I like about this as well is that you can actually pick up where you left off on here, and you can go onto the app, the mobile app. So say you're on the bus going into work, for example, and you want to practice your skills, you can pick up the mobile app, and you'll get a version of this, so you can carry on using it. Another good thing as well with the app is it's a bit like Duolingo. It will send you reminders if you haven't practiced in a couple of days. So that is a good sort of motivational thing. Now this here is free, but a lot of it is behind, big caveat, a lot of it is behind the sort of paywall, if you like. So you would need to pay for the content. But I think the bar of the quality is quite high here. We'll just have a little look, shall we, at some of the other stuff that's available on Codecademy. Just out of interest, Matt and Adrian, are you familiar with the names of some of the different programming languages?
Yeah, I've seen sometimes on FutureLearn, they do taster courses around programming, and also on Allison.com sometimes they have some introductions to coding and things like that. So you see Python quite often as one of the introductions to coding, you know, using Python. That was a course on FutureLearn. And the great thing about them is if you want to dip in, you can go into FutureLearn and they'll give you the platform to download to use to be able to actually have a go yourself. So, you know, this I think is one level up from that when you've tried it and then you want to go a little bit further. And you to get to this point, you will probably have to pay.
Yeah, and I think that's the good thing with it, because if you were to try and learn, say for example, SQL, and you were trying to do it from scratch, you'd probably end up with books, and that's quite difficult. And to actually get the platform to download it can be costly, quite a tricky thing to do. So it's really good to have the actual platform integrated into the site, so you can actually give it a go, and you've got a lot of hands-on learning. You know, there's really good stuff here. There's HTML, which is sort of basic web developments. I'd say JavaScript, those kind of things which are useful for mobile apps. Python, you can do loads of stuff in. Don't pretend to be an expert in that, but all of this is here. Kotlin is another one, which is a web and mobile sort of platform. So there you've got the catalog there. And the other good thing about this, and another good site which I'll show you shortly, there are pathways as well. So it will suggest you, pathways from beginner right up to your, expert level. So, any questions so far on Codecademy?
No, I think that's fine, Neil. I think we can move on.
Okay, all right, fabulous. Right, and so a little bit more in depth now. I've only really dipped my toes into this a little bit, but I wanted to show you something called Pluralsight, and this is while I was doing my research, I asked some of my colleagues who are still in the IT industry about what they use. Now, I think if you're a little bit further down the road, perhaps, then this is a good one to look at. There is a lot of kind of expert content here. So I'm only going to run through this briefly, but again, this is Pluralsight. It has, again, you've got your career pathways. This is behind. Now, I've actually signed up to a free trial here, so I have to be quite careful that I'm going to cancel that one. Otherwise, I'll get charged £24 for the privilege. But a lot of this here is stuff that can lead up to certification, which is good content. Now, again, a lot of it .NET, which is sort of basically your, kind of computer build, that sort of thing, building computers and systems. Azure, which is kind of how you do cloud development, Android, Kotlin, all that good stuff for building apps. Really good, it's sort of, building skills, looking at your employability, those kind of things. But anyway, I just want to sort of leave this one here because it's quite in depth, but it is, but the bar is very high on this site as well. So let's just look. They've got videos as well. Just go back to that for a moment.
So the £24 you mentioned, is that like a monthly cost?
That is a month, yes. That's a monthly cost. So that you have to be quite committed, to be sort of, trying to sort of pay the money, but you get a lot out of it as well. I mean, another really good thing about this is the IT security side, which again is another very, very in demand. So a lot of these are very in demand sort of skills that you can build up as well. Good. Okay. So from there, I'll talk to you a little bit more now about something that I'm using at the moment, which is Salesforce. Anyone know what this is?
Yeah, we've used. I think we use it in TUC to basically identify people you want to promote things to. So it can be emails and a database of all the different contacts and people like that. That's as far as I go with it, Neil, I'm afraid. But that's what I understand it to be.
Okay. So yeah, this is Salesforce is a customer relations management system, which basically means you can use it as a database. It's a lot of companies use it to log their relationships with customers and what they sell to them, basically. I mean, the clue's in the name Salesforce, really. But I mean, it's quite a discrete. So this is only going to teach you about Salesforce, but it's really in demand. A lot of companies use it. Spotify is kind of based on the Salesforce platform. Toyota use it. Dare I say, Amazon use it as well. So it's essentially a database system, but all of the training materials for it, right up to pretty much your accreditation, is all on here. So I've gone into, just as an example, I've gone into Welcome to Salesforce, which is just about what Salesforce is, really. So it's based on most of your actual sort of learning is based on actually getting in there and doing stuff with this. So it's got a thing called a playground, which is like an environment where you go in and test what you've learned, so you can go in and build things, and like you can say, for example, look at how your telephone lists relate to your email lists and how you communicate with people, that sort of thing. And it, really, if you go right to the beginning, it just tells you from scratch what these things are. So what is CRM, customer relationship management, and you can see essentially what Salesforce is really it's a platform, but it's really low code, so you don't have to get in the back end of it and start typing in 10 print XYZ, all that sort of coding thing. It's something that you can learn from scratch, and it's quite easy to get started in, and you can dip your toes into as much as you want to. These modules, these training modules, are called trailheads, which kind of gives you kind of the idea that they are learning pathways. And let me just sort of look at some of the modules here. So look at the so I'm in the middle of something called Admin Beginner at the moment, which is a little bit more complicated than it sounds. But you've got data modeling, data management. There's lots more on sort of security and that sort of thing, IT security. So just that's kind of sort of a brief outline. I think it's a useful thing if somebody's looking for how to sort of broaden out their skills and experience and looking at sort of wider employability, that sort of thing, if that makes sense. And the great thing about it is the vast majority of the content there is free, so it is something you can do as little or as much as you'd like to in it. You get badges. We all like badges. You get points. They go towards them. And if we can look at my sort of profile here, okay, so I've got these skills built up when I'm working towards certifications and a super badge, that sort of thing. Okay. Right, so shall I move on?
Yeah, I mean, you said there was free content. What about how much do you pay, and is that reasonable, or is it not worth paying? Is it just worth sticking with the free on there?
I think until you get to the, I actually don't know how much the accreditation costs, because that the accreditation we're talking about actual residential courses, classroom stuff. I think for the entry level stuff, it's free up to quite an advanced level, so I wouldn't be worrying too much about the cost later on, unless you are a serious professional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think using this now, I think it's, again, you touched on it, really, it's for people, again, who want to look at widening their experience to apply for other jobs where a company may actually use this sort of technology already. And I think that's where it's really useful, because if someone's already using it, you've got no experience, and you go for a job interview, at least if you can show you've been starting to learn it in your application or when at the interview, you're going to stand more chance than if you've got no clue whatsoever about Salesforce. Absolutely,
yeah. I mean, it's something you can talk about in an interview as well, and you can impress a prospective employer in that sort of way. I think it's quite handy for that as well. Yeah, it's a good way to it's a good way to just get into sort of an IT skill if you're not that fond of looking at screens full of code. A lot of Salesforce is you drag stuff across and drop it in and that sort of stuff, and not until you get really into the really down and dirty with it, you don't have to really code anything until far further down the line, at which point you're probably talking about you're in a 50-60 grand a year job anyway. So there you go. Good. Right, okay, so I'm going to just sort of I'll just take a little bit of a diversion here to something a bit different, if that's all right. I'm going to show you the BBC Academy. So now we're looking at, if you want to get into something a bit different, a bit more media orientated, social media, that sort of thing. So let's go to the Academy home. Okay, so I've been looking at here podcasting. A lot of this is like aimed at getting people into media and tech industries and that sort of thing. So let's have a look at this. So let's go back to the BBC Academy. Yeah. The only caveat with this one is some of the content is staff only, but a lot of the free content here is very high quality. The bar is very high in this sort of sector. So let's have a look through some of this stuff then. So as I say, I was looking at podcasting. So a lot of the just runs here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot of video content. Here we go. This collection here. These are called collections. So they're well, what it says, they are collections of videos and articles and guides and stuff on how to get started. So you might think podcasting's a totally different thing, but and it isn't sort of IT related. But actually, there's a lot of things that you need to be technically savvy about if you're going to start something like this. Right down to, for example, how you record the sound, that sort of thing. So it is very it's also a very up and coming skill as well. I mean, loads and loads of people are doing podcasts. I know TUC doing them, aren't they? I think I know Unison certainly do this. So there's a lot of stuff about marketing, getting people to listen to it, as well as the quality. So that's a bit about podcasting. Another thing I like, which is a really useful skill, which I have been involved in a professional capacity over the last year, is social media. Now this is again a very it's not just posting stuff on Facebook and Twitter and that sort of thing. It's understanding how they work, looking under the bonnet, looking at algorithms, looking at stuff like when you post to get noticed, what your strategies are, how you increase the visibility of your content. For example, did you know that you how you get up the algorithm in Facebook and Twitter? You have to use more emojis. Anyone knew that?
No. I mean, this is really timely actually, Neil, because we've been looking at social media ourselves, myself and Matt, and seeing how to reach more people, and it's something that's very topical. I just want to say, I mean, the BBC website's fantastic. I mean, it's got not just the Academy, but everything on there is super high quality. And I didn't even know this existed, to be honest. I've probably come across it years ago. It probably was mentioned to me when I used to look after equity, the union, with a project, but it's not something that I've really looked at. But absolutely now I'm going to get straight on it and have a look, because it looks really good. It's the quality. BBC can rely on BBC for quality on everything they do course-wise, right through the whole suite of courses they do across a range of different subjects. The quality is normally really good.
Absolutely, and it really shows you that I think the more you dig into things like social media, podcasting, these are really they're really sort of, it's more of a science, really. It's kind of a very sort of sought after technical skill as well. So good quality free content like this is really and also it's just very, very engaging too. So I mean, I think there probably is free stuff around Photoshop as well in here too. If we have a look, I mean, it's just worth having a nose around and finding stuff that you want to see, because it's just really there we go. Yeah, sort of. I mean, even stuff like taking pictures for the web. You wouldn't believe the amount of time that a BBC employee spends getting the right picture for, say, the website and BBC Sounds, that sort of thing as well. So there's all sorts of skills you can learn here as well. And the other great thing about this is there are these things which, right, yeah, so you've got all these guides on how to get hired, how to get into the industry too. So loads of great content about making yourself more employable in this industry. So I think this really complements. If you go back to Udemy and look at some of the content there, this could really potentially complement how you sort of build up your, sort of learning in if you want to sort of get into these industries. So I think that's very, very worth having a look around. Also, actually, I will say this: I can get more resource on the BBC Academy because I've got an insider in my house. If anyone wants to know more, tell them to ask me. I'll find stuff out for you. All right. But so there we go. I think that the last actual site that I wanted to show you. I mean, you mentioned FutureLearn already. I'm not really going to go into that. You're quite familiar with those. I wanted to show you this. I don't know if anyone's seen Scratch. Now, this is another one that was highlighted to me by a colleague. Now, this is more aimed at 8 to 16-year-olds, but it's really good because it introduces you to coding. So you've got, if you see along the left of the screen here, this is actually an animation, and you've got all these things. This on the left is coding here. So you've got a little. There we go.
Your own story.
I'll let it speak for itself.
And animations. Let's start by grabbing a move block. We can click the block to run it. There are many other blocks to choose from. Check out the different categories. Let's go to the sound category and grab a play sound until done block. I'll snap this onto our move block.
I mean, I'll not let that run for too long, but I think you get the gist of, very sort of drag and drop kind of thing. But I think at the moment, when a lot of kids are, are coding at school and using things like the Raspberry Pi and that sort of thing, this is really, I think the real great thing. If my sort of child was older, when he is older, it'll be the kind of thing I'll be using with him, and I'll be learning alongside him. At the same time, I'll be better able to help him with his schoolwork. And I think this is all free as far as I have dug into it. There are tutorials in here, and this is really how you start out in in kind of coding media. Is you just have a go, and there's so much fun you can have with this as well. Make videos, put music on the videos. You can even subtitle in here as well, which is another thing that you is a really good skill to have too. So I would just suggest people have a look into this and have fun with it. And if you got kids, have fun with the kids as well.
Thanks, Neil. I mean, that is a site. I think we on our Union Learning at Home pages, we've got sites for kids during lockdown to help them learning. And I think that'll be my next one I'm going to put on there, because to be honest, that looks really fantastic. I know my kids would love to do that. We tried a little bit of animation using some stop go animation apps, which they really enjoy. So actually to do it, with the cartoons as well, and I think they'll love that. So I think, yeah, definitely that is a really good one for the kids. There's a real range of sites you've shown us there today, but I definitely like that one.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd only heard of 2 of those sites before. So, one of them was the BBC, and I hadn't heard of that part of the BBC site. So it's really opened my eyes up about it.
I've got one last thing to show you. This is not strictly speaking learning, but it's a good resource. Now, I use this a lot when basically a couple of years ago when I worked in an IT department, and I kind of, in some ways, I was chucked in at the deep end with SQL, and sometimes people are too busy to answer questions and that sort of thing, and so I'd go on this thing here called Stack Overflow, and what this is a place you can do is you can go and ask a question. So if you do end up, if people do end up in a job where you are stuck for an answer, and there isn't someone who can answer the question, or you suddenly find yourself in a job where you have to code or something, and then there's no one to answer the question for you, or no one's got time, you can go onto the Stack Overflow website, which is kind of an open source Now, a lot of these are quite, you know, very, very technically sort of, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily sort of profess to know what these are about. However, what you can do, the great thing about this is you can go in, you can find out who's asked the question before. Invariably, someone will have asked the question before, and then you'll find the answer to it. And if someone hasn't asked the question before, then you could ask it yourself. And so this is essentially a massive resource. And then when you log in and create your profile, you can set your interests here. So when the questions come up, you can set your interests. So you see on my profile, I've got SharePoint, something else I use, SQL, etc., data warehouse, business intelligence. So it sort of tells the content to you. So I think that's something for, you know, something to just to be aware of. I think it's a good resource out there as well.
Thanks, Neil. That's really good. I think what you could do, you can go for an interview and say you've got the skills, and then get the job, and then use this to actually answer all the questions and do the work while you're there. I think that's a really good idea. But it looks a fantastic resource that's again, me and Matt weren't aware of, which is why we brought you in to give us the lowdown on all of this. And it's been fascinating for me, because we tend to focus specifically on certain areas when we look at free online learning. We don't tend to go into more technical detail. And again, you know, when the BBC one was really good, and so was Scratch, and that Stackflow looks really good as well.
Yeah, I think Scratch is the one I'll be having to go out with the kids this weekend.
We start from scratch, Matt, can't we? You know.
We have to. Okay, yeah, well, thanks for coming along, Neil. That's really, really helped us there, and I hope it's helped everybody that's been watching as well. And yeah, it's been brilliant. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.